All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Kabbalah Café. This is our weekly exploration of all things mystical. So I want to begin by explaining the title of today's class, which is Spiritual Immaturity. It's not meant to sound in any way derogatory. On the contrary, it's meant to imply the notion that there's really two dimensions, or more than two, multiple dimensions in our growth spiritually. And we always begin, every human being begins, whether it's, in their lives or in their growth or even in their day, everyone begins kind of at the bottom, and the goal is to climb up higher and higher. So if you might recall, I don't know when we did this, maybe it was a few weeks ago, where we went through the tefillot, we went through the prayers. And we explained in that class that really the Siddur, the prayer book, is a journey. It's meant to take us on a journey climbing up to an awareness and appreciation and really a feeling of connection with the Creator, with God. And we do this by first being cognizant of the world around, first being cognizant of self, and then the world around us, and then the heavens above us, and then kind of ever, closer or ever, increasing awareness of the fact that God is the creator of everything and the bestower of all the gifts that we have. So again, just to contextualize this, the way we did it a few weeks ago. So the first Jewish prayer of the day is the Modeh Ani, where we say, Modeh Ani lefanecha melech chai v'kayam, shechazarta bi nishmati b'chem l'rabba munatecha, which means basically, the short version, it's like, 11, 12 words, in Hebrew, and the upshot is, a person says, I acknowledge or I offer thanks to you, living an eternal King, for returning my soul to me or within me.
Mercy.
With mercy. I'm trying to do the translation in my head. Oh, your faithfulness is great. Your faithfulness to me is great. Good. Excellent. This was Modani by committee. So I thank you for the help. So basically, a person, you first become aware and cognizant. Good morning, Odette. We first become cognizant and aware of ourselves. The first moment we open our eyes, the first consciousness is self. But then immediately following consciousness of self, we say, Modeh ani lefanecha, I offer thanks to you, God, for giving me life, for returning my soul, for allowing me to wake up today. And it's a beautiful and powerful acknowledgement of the fact that we take nothing for granted, starting from the very basic notion of waking up in the morning. Nothing is taken for granted. Everything is a blessing, and everything is an opportunity for gratitude. And then we continue the prayers, as I explained a few weeks ago. We continue, yeah.
One thing I've read about that prayer is they say it's noticeable because it doesn't say God's name in it. And it's also the Rebbe's favorite prayer.
Yes, it's the prayer that you don't utilize God's name, you refer to God euphemistically as the King, right?
Yeah.
Not Elvis.
Well, why would that make it more powerful?
Because it's, really the first thing we say is Modeh ani lefanecha. I offer thanks to you. You is stronger than a name. Meaning like this. If a person existed without anybody else around, if you lived on an island, if I lived on an island, and all I had was a soccer ball named Wilson, let's just say, volleyball, soccer ball, volleyball. Imagine that. And if my name was Tom Hanks, no, okay, right? Would I need a name? Would you need a name if no one else were around? If there were no other human beings that would need to identify, call you, or differentiate you from someone else, would you need a name? The answer is no. You wouldn't need a name. A name is a handle. Remember those truck, hey, good to see you. Remember those truck CBs? Breaker 2-3. I don't know what they. Did they say breakers? Did I just make that up? What is happening here? Hold on. That was so weird. Okay, hold on 1 second. Let me just check something. Yep. All right, that camera's still working. It was zoomed in very close to my face. I'm like, what is happening? Like, that was weird. Like, I don't remember setting it that close. All right, back to the story. So you need names to differentiate between one thing and another. Like even the fact that we give different things. Let's go. Mouse. I don't know who did that. Who called this mouse? Weird. Cup. Right? It sounds like an episode of Sesame Street. Book. Sponsored by the number 7. No, I'm kidding. Phone. I don't know. Box. Webcam. Whatever it is, right? Everything has a name. Why do things have names? Why did we come up with this notion of everything needs to have a name? You know why? Because if I asked you to pass me the thing, it would soon get a little awkward. What thing? That thing. Which thing? The other thing. This thing, that thing. So you label it, boom. Meaning a name is not needed essentially for the thing itself. It's needed for others. Does that make sense? You don't need a name. Others need you to have a name so that they can identify you and call you and hopefully not late for dinner, right? That's why you need a name. You don't need a name for you. You can live without a name. In fact, most of us, unless you're a prominent athlete, most of us do not actually refer to themselves by their own name. Meaning in the third person. You ever hear an interview and someone's like, Michael Jordan didn't play a good game today. I don't know if Michael Jordan actually did that. I don't know. Did he speak? There were athletes. He probably did not. Who spoke? But there were, who, LeBron? Does LeBron speak in third person? Oh, just like, cause like, yeah. That's what the next best player would do. Kobe. Did Kobe speak in third person? Huh?
I don't think LeBron's that good. He just has a lot of duration.
Well, that's there may be already 3 that are great. Okay, here's the deal. You don't need a name for yourself. You need a name for others. So when we say moda'ani lefanecha, right? I give thanks to you. That's even greater than calling God by a name, because a name is already a handle. A name is already a description, and there are different names of God. I mentioned before, we talked about numerology. 26 is the numerology of the Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, the 4-letter name of God that we don't pronounce the way that it's written, the Tetragrammaton, which is not a video game, but Tetragrammaton, the 4-letter name of God. It's like, remember that football? Sorry, it's football. Remember that football player for the Detroit Lions? They used to call him Megatron. And Calvin Johnson and Tetris coming together makes the Tetragrammaton. No, but it's a reference to God's name. That is what we consider to be the most holy of the divine names, and yet, nonetheless, it's still a name. It's not the essence.
Still, in Hebrew at least, you still limit a little bit, even in modernity, because you say lefanecha, which is 50%, to be lefanai.
Right.
You're
still limited with language, but it's
not in English.
Right in Hebrew. But if you think about this, think about the 10 Commandments. What's the opening word of the 10 Commandments? Anochi. I am the Lord your God. Meaning the other name, the names of God. Hashem Elok, Anochi Hashem Elokechem. Anochi Hashem Elokechem. Yeah. Hashem Elokecha. I am the Lord your God. That the names of God follow the Anochi, the I, because I transcends the names. But getting back to the point over here, we always begin with a frame of reference of self and of world and of stuff and of objects around us, and then we try to rise a little bit higher in our perception, in our awareness, and in this context, in our gratitude of God that we're trying to achieve in the prayers. So this is reflecting what Kabbalah refers to as da'at tachton versus da'at elyon. There's 2 dimensions of perception and awareness. And we've talked about this in the past, but I want to highlight it today and really go deeper in this. Da'at tachton, lower perception, is, as the mystics say, lamata yesh ulamayla ayin. below is or exists, and above is ayin. How would you translate ayin? Nothingness.
Yeah, with Aleph, yeah.
Yeah, with an aleph. Nothingness. Meaning, our perception is this is real. Spirituality, don't know. Ethereal. Not that it doesn't exist, but that it's nothing that we know. Because we're coming from the perception of this is real. We talk about real things, concrete reality. This is real. And what's above is not so real. Even though we believe in God, but it's not tangible. That's a human being's almost necessary reference point. Because it always begins from inside. Our frame of reference always begins with self. And only after we understand or we think or we come from a place of self can we see the other. So on a very simple example, this is true also in interpersonal relationships or human to human interactions. I always see you from where I am. And one way to think about this is I ask you all, please, don't worry, it's not going to get weird. Raise your right hand. Okay, to me, that's your left hand. Because I look at you through my lens. So your right is my left. That's the easiest way to think about this, maybe, the easiest way to frame it. It's the exact opposite of what you did. So to you, that's right. To me, that's left. So who's right? Obviously, you're right. Oh, now I'm using right again. Who's correct? You're correct. But I will always look at you through my lens, not through your lens. I can't look. You know what it says in Pirkei Avot, Ethics of the Fathers? Do not judge another until you reach their place. You know what that really means? You can never judge someone else. Because you can never really reach their place. I think it was I'm remembering this now from like 10th grade, 9th grade, To Kill a Mockingbird.
Yes, until you don't know a man until you walk in his shoes.
Yeah, something like that, right? Until you walk around in his shoes. And you know what? You can't. You can't. That's why we're told, you know what? Leave the judging to those that wear the black robes and get, that's their job as ordained, from a higher power, as it were. But like you and I judging others for what? The book of Tanya, which is like the Bible of Chabad Hasidic philosophy, says something phenomenal in I think it's in chapter 32 of the book of Tanya. 32 also, speaking of numerology, the letters that form 32 are Lamed and Bet, Lev, the heart. The heart of Tanya. The heart of Tanya is all about, it's not about spirituality and relating to God, it's about relating to other people. That's the heart, chapter 32 of Tanya. So in chapter 32 of Tanya, by the way, chapter 32 of the book of Exodus, which we just started yesterday, verse 32 of chapter 32, you know what that is? The heart of the heart, the lev of the lev, the heart of Exodus, is where Moses turns to God and says, if you don't forgive the people for the sin of the golden calf, take my name out of your book. Mecheni na misifracha asher kasafta, erase my name from the book that you have written. Moses takes a stand against whom? Against God, and says either create a path of forgiveness, or I don't want any part of this. Do not rope me into a way of life that doesn't give second chances. That is literally Moses' ultimatum to whom? To God. Talk about chutzpah. That's why Moses is Moses. You know what it is? If you and I can't speak to God like that, you got to wonder, like, is God real or is God theoretical? You know what I mean? Like, if God's theoretical, then I'm really going to speak to God like that? Like, who am I speaking to? But if you have a real relationship, then you really get worked up about things. You really have it. You know who had the most open conversations with God? Abraham, Moses, Elijah the prophet. All of the greats, the great of it, they're the ones that are having open and honest dialogues with God. Back to the story. Back to Tanya. Thank you. Got a lot of open parentheses here. That's how we like it. Got a lot of browser tabs open. Let's go back to Tanya chapter 32. You know what he says? He says, you might think to yourself, this guy, look at this guy struggling. Unbelievable. Cannot believe he's failing in this. The Alter Rebbe says, how do you know that if you were in that situation, with all of the factors, the background, the upbringing, the nature, the disposition, and the challenges, how do you know that you would have fared any better? It's very possible that you would have fared worse. And you know who he's really speaking to? Almost. He's speaking to everybody, but he's also speaking to the so-called scholar or pious person that spends most of their time locked away in the Beit Midrash, in the study hall, studying and praying. And then has the chutzpah, not in a good way, to go and internally judge others who are not so perfect. When they're not faced with the same challenge, you're not walking the streets. You're not engaging in business. You don't know what it's like to have that challenge. So how could you say that I'm better than that person? How could you ever judge? You didn't walk. You're not walking that path. Anyway, back to the point. So we're always looking at. So close that parenthesis up. Back to. It's like lines of code, right? It goes in, it goes back out. So we're now up to the point where we get back to the idea that whenever we look at someone else, we're always looking at that person through our own lens and experience, which makes our perception of the other necessarily jaded, biased, and as a result, flawed. It's never going to be an accurate understanding and awareness of that person. The only way to accurately understand the person is to climb inside them and to understand what's going on from the inside out. And you and I can't do that. So getting back to this big idea, when we think about God and in our prayers, when we pray to God, it's always coming from our perception. I'm alive. I woke up this morning. Thank you, God. I was able to get up and stand and walk and see and get dressed and whatever. And we went through this a few weeks ago. All the morning blessings in the morning. And thank you, God. But for what? For what I have. It always begins with me. I have this, thank you, God. I have that, thank you, God. The world is beautiful, thank you, God. The angels, the heavens, the stars, the sun, the moon. It's amazing. Creation is amazing. Thank you, God. It's coming from a perception of this is real. This is God is the unknown, mysterious creator. So we know what this is. This is a yesh. Yesh means is. It is. It exists. God is like this nebulous. I don't mean that in a derogatory. I mean we don't really know exactly who and what God is. God's a mystery. We believe in God, but God's like the ayin to our yesh. God is the not to our is. An expression that no one has ever used in human history. Okay, it works better in Hebrew.
It's a living language. Yeah.
It works better in Hebrew. Definitely works better. So again, the two words, it's because we're going to flip it in a second. Yesh means is or exists. Ayin means not sure. Not sure that God exists, but not sure what that is that God is. Okay. Whereas that's tachton, that's our perspective, that's our vantage point.
Yeah, that's why this expression in Hebrew, yesh mi'ayin.
Oh, yesh mi'ayin. Creation is, exactly. So the mystics say, you know what all of this is? Yesh me'ayin. Something from nothing. God's like, who you calling nothing? Well, we call God not nothing in a bad way, but nothing in a nothing that we know of way. Nothing that we've ever seen with our own eyes way. Nothing that we can ever touch tangibly. I mean, this cup, l'chaim. Little morning seltzer. So this, I can touch this. This I can touch. God, I don't know. Can't touch. But still is real, but not on this level. God's perception, again, and we've talked about this in previous sessions, but God's perception is the exact opposite. Lamayla yesh ulamata ayin. Above is, and below, not that real. God's perception is, right, I'm now speaking as though I were speaking for God. I exist. God says. I am real. I am the only true reality. Y'all, how real are you as a creation of my imagination? Meaning, you think you're real, but I know that I'm projecting you to existence at every single moment. So how real is your reality? It's not really real. Your whole reality is me. So I am the true existence, and you, but it's not a contest. It's not like who's right. It's two different perceptions on reality. So that tachton, again, I'm just going to say, I know I'm using a lot of Hebrew, but here we are. That tachton, lower perception, meaning our perception, our perspective on reality is lamata yesh, below is, lamayla ayin, above, I don't know, something. It's, unseen. Whereas divine perception, that elyon, higher perception, God's perspective, is lamayla yesh, above is lamata ayin, and below is not. Not so real. So what does this do for us? This reminds us the following, that every time, Kabbalah speaks a lot about meditation, which we also had a whole session on the idea of Jewish meditation, Kabbalistic meditation. Kabbalah speaks a lot about meditation in the context of prayer. And meditation in the context of prayer really means that you think about God and you think about the Creator to the point that you develop, as we explained in the session that we cover this, a feeling or an emotion toward the Creator. So you're thinking about God, and it culminates with the Shema prayer, where we talk about loving God with all our heart, with all our soul, with all our might. So it culminates in love. So the build up to the Shema, which is from Deuteronomy, the build up to that is all about thinking about the things, meditating, focusing our thought and ruminating our mind on the things that will bring us to a place of feeling a love for God. So how do you and I conjure up a love for God? And you know what the Kabbalists say the best way to do that is? You want to feel a love to God? Here's how you do it. Think about the blessings that you have. Think about where they come from, and think about the fact that God is providing those blessings. Right? So here's a short version of the meditation. It's a little bit grub, a little bit direct, but here we go. Right? I love my life. God gives me my life. I love God. That's the short of it. You with me? Does that make sense? That's the very short version, very direct and very non-subtle version. I love my life. I enjoy being alive. I enjoy the life that I have. I enjoy the blessings that I have. I enjoy my life. I know that comes from God. Sorry, I love my life. My life comes from God. Therefore, I love God. Because God has provided the things that I love. So how could I not love God? My very life is coming from God. The life that I love is coming from God. So then how could I not love God? Who's giving me that life that I love? So that's the meditation. And it's done over, I don't know, in the prayer book, like 20 pages, in way more subtle terms, way more refined language. But at the core of it, it's like, like the joke with the kids with the, there's, in Jewish law, there's, in practice, there's blessings before we eat food and blessings that we say after we eat food. So the grace after a meal is like, there's like a few pages long. But in camp, sometimes the kids would say, what was it? Rub, or something. Thanks for the grub, go God, like something like that. A very short version, like thanks for the food. It was great. Here's the short version of the meditation. I love my life. I love life. God gives life. I love God. That's it. The question is, if that's the meditation, what's the foundation of loving God? What's the foundation of that love of God? Self-love. Meaning in this formula, the reason why I love God is because I love myself. And God gives me the stuff that I want and I need. Meaning, it's what we call an ava Hatuluya b'davar. It's a love that's dependent on something. It's not a pure unconditional love. It's a love that is contingent on the fact that God gives me what I need and what I have and who I am and all that stuff and life itself. So therefore I love God. But it's not a love that's pure about God on God's terms. It's love that's grounded within my terms. I can see, thank you, God. I can stand, thank you, God. I woke up this morning, thank you, God. Meaning, what I'm really saying is, I love myself so much. And God is giving me the things that I need. So therefore I love God, which means ultimately I love myself. It's no different than a person saying to another human being, I love you because of what you give to me, which is nice, but it's still self-oriented. It's still a little bit selfish, right? Person says, I love you so much. And they ask, why do you love me? I love you because you make such a good breakfast for me. I love you because you buy my clothes and style me impeccably, right? I love you because, hey, Ramon, good to see you. I love you because, I'm trying to conjure, like, just what would a person say? I love you because, ultimately, because of what I get out of it. So and as we've discussed many times in many different contexts, that's really a self-love. It's really a self-love masked. It's not really it's a self-love that's manifest and projected toward the other that is giving me what I want and what I need. But it's not pure love of the other. So anytime we approach God through our own awareness and our own human lens, there's an inherent limitation, and therefore what I'm calling this morning, spiritual immaturity. What is spiritual immaturity? It means approaching God from the perspective of, what have you done for me? What can you do for me? Therefore I love you, right? You gave me life, love you. You gave me breath, you're the man. You're the God, right? You gave me the ability to walk around, to think, to live this life, to enjoy the beautiful blue sky. Yep. Little puffy clouds over there just for a little decorative touch.
Sprinkle that up.
We'll sprinkle that in, a little Photoshop the clouds in. Yeah. Great. God, I love you. It's beautiful. It's stunning. Oh my gosh. You ever go to a place where you're looking over at nature, whatever it is, whether it's, the mountains or the ocean, or from the mountains, I'm thinking of a song, to the prairies, to the ocean, white with foam, right? God bless. You ever been to a Braves game on Sunday? They have that guy sing God Bless America. Unbelievable. Hook up that guy. He is, I don't know his name. He is unbelievable. Anyway, back to the story. What a chassid. This guy, plug him into the service, bring the house down. Back to the story. If we think of God in those terms, wow, life is amazing. The world is beautiful. And God made all this. God is amazing. Guess what? It's good. It's still a little immature. Because what you're saying is, God, I love you because of what you're doing for me. It's still contingent on me. It's still, I love you because of what you do for me. It's still not pure love. So anytime we approach God through our own lens, it's going to be inherently limited. And again, in the language that we're discussing, immature. What I want to, and therefore, that will always be fraught with an internal battle. If you love God because of what God provides for you, you know what the problem is? You know what the challenge with that is? What happens when you feel like God is not providing for you? Maybe I don't love God today. Maybe my love for God is a little bit on the ropes. What have you done for me lately? I'm happy to wake up this morning, but I've got a laundry list of things that I have complaints about. So God knew, so my love now is not so hot. Or what if my mind tells me, or someone tells me, that they are the one providing something for me, and it's not, I don't need God. I don't need to turn to God. Oh, you need this? There's an app for that. I got you covered. So then maybe it's like, oh, I love God and I love TikTok, because TikTok is very entertaining. So I love God for providing life and whatever, but I love TikTok because dances. Do they do dances on TikTok? Is that a thing? I think so. You ever see people filming the dancing? I've seen that. There's a camera and they're just like filming. It's a thing. I'm judging. It's a thing. Whatever.
Out of context, it looks off.
That's what I'm saying. Like, because when it's quiet and you don't have the backtrack, it's just like, oh, okay. And they do multiple takes. Like, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm just saying that a person might say, I love God, but I also like TikTok, Instagram, Uber Eats, whatever it is, whatever our thing is, right? I love God plus this. And maybe today I like that, maybe a little bit more than God, because God is not coming through. But Instagram always delivers. YouTube always has content for me. I know I am focused on content right now. But like,
Rabbi?
Yeah.
So you mentioned just a few minutes ago that God views us as not as real because we're just a figment of his imagination, his or its imagination, or God spoke and then we became real, but we're not even part of God. So how do we resolve that with the Shema that tells us God in its essence is the same, is one with us, the same.
Good.
God is one.
Good. Excellent. God is one with us. The highest dimension of that perception is that we are nothing but manifestations of God, which means that our reality is really his reality and we don't have a separate reality. Meaning the highest truth of the Shema meditation is this idea of that God is real and we are not as real as we think we are on a day-to-day basis. If our perception, if your perception is that you are real only insofar as God is real, then congratulations, you are thinking of life and perceiving it through the divine lens. But if your perception is I am real and God is my creator, then that's already lower perception. The Holy Grail is exactly what you're saying, meaning your question is your answer. It's not how do we square it with what we say in the Shema, that God is one. It's on the contrary. The fact that we're saying that God is one really means that our reality is only because God is projecting us into being. We don't have our own self-contained, self-defined, self-sufficient reality outside of God. That's the higher perspective that we're trying to get to. But let's read this inside. What we're going to do today is we're going to, here we go. We're going to begin chapter 7. Chapter 7 is on page 68. Today, we're going to do one chapter. Chapter 7 until chapter 8. That's the plan. We're going to read it. I'm going to explain it. We're going to delve into it, and it's and it should be a raucous. Is that a word? R-A-U-C. Yeah, raucous time for all. Frolicking time. Frolicking. Is that the right thing? Okay. I have to get this. Need to get up the text on my computer so I can read this. Hold on 1 second. All right, all for the sake of heaven. Okay, again, we're on page 68. Okay, we have a lot of powerful ideas today. So let's jump in. Let's jump into the text. We usually wait to the end to do the text. We're starting a little bit early so that we can get a little bit more depth in the reading itself. Okay, so the context of our conversation in the text is Jacob. We know Jacob has two names, Jacob and Israel. Jacob is given upon his birth. Israel is given upon his defeating the angel of his brother Esau. Jacob represents the struggle and the battle, and as we'll see today, Jacob represents the level of spiritual immaturity that we've been talking about. So here we go. Chapter 7, immature intellect. So the chapter begins with the word nevertheless. Nevertheless. The concept, and let me explain what the nevertheless is. We just explained in the previous chapter that our job, our role is to engage with the world, the stuff of the world around us, and to present a front as though we were engaging and partaking of the world on its terms. So whether we're eating, we're drinking, we're working, right? It seems like we're doing the stuff that everyone does, but in kavanah, in intention, our mindset is that we're actually going to be elevating the food, the drink, and the work, and the money, whatever around us. We're going to elevate it for a higher purpose. But no one knows about that intention. It's an intention that we have internally. Externally, the front that we present is we're all in it. We're engaging in the world on its terms. So he says at the beginning of chapter 7, nevertheless, this method of refining the world is immature. As in the verse, he held back Ikev. Let's see. Akav. I don't know why it says Ikev. Akav. He held back his brother in the womb. This is a verse that you see in footnote 128 from Hosea. So he held back his brother in the womb. This is referring to Jacob and Esau. Jacob trying to hold back his brother in the womb, trying to hold him back so that Jacob, could be born first. In other words, as we continue reading inside that first paragraph on chapter 7, whatever is deceiving Akev is so because it is still in the immature state of Ibor, which means womb or gestation. In other words, when is there wrestling and struggling? It's only when it's, quote, in the womb, meaning in a state of spiritual immaturity. And he goes into the next paragraph and explains this, combining Kabbalah and biology. It's very interesting. As is known, Ibur really means like pregnancy. Ibur is the state of three incorporated within three. And he explains, Chachma, Bina, and Dat are hidden within Chesed, Gevura, and Teferet, and these latter three are hidden within Netzach, Hod, and Yesod. All that is revealed are these latter three. Let's pause here for a moment, and let's talk about literally the fetal position. What is the fetal position? The fetal position is where the fetus is kind of folded in on itself, correct? Head kind of folded down, right? And so what you have, so in the upright human stature, you have intelligence, which is the mind, which is the head. You have the emotions, which is the upper torso. And then you have the functional parts of the human being, which, again, if a person is standing upright, then you would say, I guess, something like the hands, which extend. I don't know that the camera needs to focus in on this, but just in case, anybody's wondering what's going on, right? So you have the head, so intelligence, emotions, and then, legs, feet, hands, which are kind of dangling down a little bit lower. That's how we interact and interface with the world and actually create the change. So there are ideas, there are feelings, and then there are actions. So within the human being, within the soul, there are, as we've discussed many times, there are 10 powers of the soul, 10 soul powers. And these soul powers are divided into segments of three. Chachma, Bina, and Dat. Those are the three intellectual faculties. Then you have Chesed, Gevura, Teferet. Those are the main three emotional faculties of the soul. And then you have Netzach, Hod, Yesod. Those are the three behavioral or functional powers of the soul. Chachma, Bina, and Dat are creative intelligence, analytical comprehension, and intellectual connection with the idea. Chesed, Gevura, Teferet is love, discipline, and compassion. Netzach, Hod, Yesod. Netzach is ambition. Hod is surrender, and Yesod is connecting or relationships. So you have three. You have ideas, feelings, and then behaviors. And the powers that drive each three, the powers of intelligence, the powers of emotion, and the powers of behavior or implementation. So within a human being that is upright, you see the distinction between the three. You see the intelligence, then you see the emotions, and then you see the behavior, and you realize very quickly that it's a progression. that anything that we do is coming from a feeling. And anything we feel is coming from an awareness. If you want to change behavior, get a person excited about something, or maybe less excited about something. Emotion is what drives behavior. And what drives emotion? Ideas. I've talked about this countless times. If a person is feeling anxious, right, person feeling anxiety, right, it's always coming from something that's going on in the mind. It's always something in the head. And so the question is, if I feel afraid, am I thinking about things that are fearful? Am I putting information in front of my eyes that are causing me to be afraid? By presenting doom and gloom scenarios, by presenting bad news. And yes, what I'm suggesting is not to do that. Because whatever we put in our heads affects our feelings and then affects how we go about our day. That's always the continuum. Moach shalat al halev. The mind rules over the heart. And you know what the heart rules over? Behavior. That's how it works. We do what we feel and we feel what we think. And so that's the way it works with human beings that are alive and born and upright. What about a fetus? What about the fetal position? The fetal position is where this unborn entity is folded in on itself. And the head is on the same level as the heart, and the heart is on the same levels as the feet. Everything's on the same level. It's all connected. And so what he's saying here is that this represents the ibur, the state of pregnancy or gestation. This fetal position represents a state in which a person has not yet flexed their ability to mindfully control their emotions and to then heartfully control their actions. Everything is upside down. Everything is mixed up and everything is confused. And so we can behave by impulse as opposed to rational thought. I mean, how many times have we acted on impulse because we were afraid? Or because we were even, let's say, in love, and we did something that was irrational. And I once heard somebody say, the phrase that's used is falling in love. No one ever says, I strode purposefully into love. Everyone says, falling into love, fell into love. Why falling? Right? Because by and large, it's associated with maybe not a rational thing. And sometimes love because of love, we might do things that are a little less than rational. And, the point is that there is a state of maturity and a state of immaturity. And one way to define it is who's guiding who, or what's guiding what. Right? Is the mind guiding the heart, and is the heart guiding the action? Or is it kind of flipped where I'm doing things and I don't know why I'm doing the things that I'm doing, and it's like, and then my head tells me I shouldn't be doing that, but I'm not listening to my mind. As I expressed it before, I said, the mind dominates the heart and the heart dominates the action. That's how it is in a healthy situation. But not always does this play out. People do things all the time that they look back later and say, what was I thinking? You ever hear a person say, I'm so sorry, that wasn't me? You ever hear somebody say, that wasn't me? That wasn't me. And you're like, actually, pretty sure that was you. That wasn't anyone else. There was no one else there. That wasn't you. Of course it was you. I literally see you on the camera. You're on this, whatever it is, right? The closed caption situation. That was you. Your DNA is all over it. Of course it was you. What does a person mean when they say it wasn't me? What they're really saying is, thinking and clearly, rationally, as I'm thinking now, I would have never done it. But you did do it. Why'd you do it? Because you weren't thinking. Why weren't you thinking? Okay. Because you were in a state of ibur. Your mind wasn't necessarily controlling your heart. And your heart, controlled by your mind, wasn't necessarily controlling your actions. You just did it. Right? You shot first, you aimed later, and it didn't work out. Yeah.
Ebola, you said going back on the home, actually, Fetus in Hebrew is kubala.
Oh, a fetus.
Fetus is kubala, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the idea.
You're going back
So
to
it's the state of where the mind is not necessarily controlling the heart, and the heart is not necessarily controlling the emotions. The behavior. Everything is mixed up. Another way that Kabbalah sometimes speaks about this state is using the analogy of sleep. Sleep is a similar construct because when we sleep, typically we're on, unless you're sleeping in the chair, in a chair, watching TV or something like that, right? So we're typically sleeping flat. So our head is on the same level as our heart, which is on the same level as our feet. So everything's on the same level. But again, another way to talk about this is the fetus, which is a little bit more compressed, but also evokes the idea of the immaturity. That's because in age-wise, that definitely comes before birth, right? We all of us around this table began in this fetal position, folded up somewhere, right? And then we've hopefully matured. So let's continue. Let's continue inside. And here's what he says. Similarly, second to last paragraph in 68, regarding the aforementioned refinement, which, just to clarify again, means when a person eats and drinks and works with the intention that it should be for a higher purpose, but in behavior it looks like they're doing what everyone else is doing, but in intention it's an elevation. So let's continue. Similarly, regarding the aforementioned refinement, all that he accomplished during prayer remains hidden, meaning in his own intention, and only an impression of it remains revealed. This is the aspect of Netzach, Hod, and Yesod alone, meaning when a person, as we discussed previously, in previous sessions, when a person prays and gets their priorities straight for the day. My priority is divine priorities. My priority is my mission in life. Yes, I'm going to go to work, and yes, I'm going to eat, and yes, I'm going to hang out with friends, whatever. But it's all centered around, it all revolves around my core mission. So that's what prayer does in the morning. It sets us on a path of what core mission is. Great. But then now we're no longer praying. Now we're actually at work at our desk. So what are we doing? We're calling, we're emailing, we're running whatever we're doing, whatever our job entails, right? Seeing patients, whatever we're doing, we're busy at work. Well, what happened to the clarity that we had when we prayed? That it was all God, and we're here for. Where is that? Okay, it's in our mind. It's still in the back of our minds, but in the forefront of our minds is we're doing the work that we're doing. So what that means is that our intention of what it's all about, and even our emotion of loving God, all of that is hidden. And what's on the outside? Just the behavior, just what we're doing on a behavioral level. The Netzach, Hod, and Yesod, which are the three behavioral elements. That's what you see. You see a person working, or you see a person eating. You don't see a person meditating and praying, because they're not doing that at that time. Let's continue. He says this is because his initial accomplishment during prayer was also of, and he uses the expression in Hebrew and Kabbalah, katnut hamochin. That means that katnut hamochin literally means immature intelligence. It doesn't mean that you didn't understand what you were thinking about. What it means is that it was still on a lower level within the mind. Let's continue. What does this look like? What does katnut hamochin look like? What does this spiritual maturity look like? He must exert himself in contemplation, and particularly to develop a love for God, page 70, to want God alone and not what meets the eye. All of this is with a struggle, by the way. You have to work hard to contemplate about God and to develop a love for God, to want God and not what meets the eye, meaning not physical delights and desires, and to ensure that all his dealings with the physical are only for the sake of heaven. As mentioned earlier, all of this requires intense effort on his part. Why? Because it's on the level of katnut hamochin, which means initial state of forming these ideas. Take a look in the parentheses. This is I don't even know why it's parenthetical, because it's so important. He says this is, and it's in the original, it's in the parentheses, but here we are. This is because and this is what I was talking about before at the opening of today's session. This is because his physical perception is limited. And he is not capable of contemplating or perceiving a form of divinity higher than what is manifest within the world. Let me pause here for a moment. You know what that means? That means that this person's relationship to God is only insofar as God creates me and the world. When I meditated on God, what did I meditate on? The fact that God created all of this. Meaning in my head, God is limited to the being creator of this reality. And I'm not thinking about who God is beyond creation. Does that make sense? Creation is something that God does, not necessarily who God is. Right? Creation is something God does. God creates, but that's not the totality of who God is. God is beyond the act of creation. So I told you, I walked you through the general meditation that we spoke about earlier, right? I walked you through that, the general prayer meditation in very blunt language. And that is, I love my life. God gives me my life. I love God. Right? That was the three-pronged attack. I love my life. God gives me my life. I love God. You know what that means? That in that construct, my God is the one that gives me life. That's it. That's all that God is. God is limited by giving me life. That's all. God doesn't exist beyond me. That's the perception. That's what we call it katnut hamochin. That's what we call it immature perception. The immature perception is, and again, it's not meant in a derogatory sense. He's just laying the foundation for us to understand that there is a higher level. So he's referring to this as the lower level so that we do have the ability to perceive and climb to a higher level. What is this lower level? This lower level of perception is God exists in the context of my existence. I exist. Where do I come from? I come from God. Oh, God exists. Kind of shoehorn God into the picture. I exist, but I know that I can't create myself. Right? Like, where's the soul come from? So it comes from, God exists. Good. But God exists only because I exist. If I didn't exist, well, maybe God wouldn't exist. And it was in that logical formula, God exists because I exist. That's a God created almost in my image. That's me creating a God with me as the starting point, as the center of the universe. I exist. God creates me, so God exists. But who's at the center of that formula? Me, my existence. That's what we call it katnut hamochin. That's why we call it spiritual maturity. Because it's a notion of God that's limited to my being, to my creation, to my reality. Let's get back inside. So look what he says. Look at this line. Look, it's so powerful. I'm going to start the parentheses again. This is because his physical perception is limited. Meaning, the person's perception is limited to physical perception. What am I aware of? The physical stuff around me. That's what I see. And then God is an extrapolation of the physical. And he is not capable of contemplating or perceiving a form of divinity, of God, higher than what is manifest within the world. My concept of God is only that which creates this. What about beyond this? What about before this world was created? What was God like then? No idea. Not only do I not have an idea, I'm not even thinking about that. Because why should I think about that? I only know of a God that relates to me. I exist powered by God. Meaning it's almost like, I don't know, it's like a child relating to their parent, which again, I've used this example before. It's like a child relating to their parent as not a human being unto themselves, but only as my parent. And there's a stage in life where a person realizes that, oh, my parent is also a person and existed before me and outside of me. And yes, maybe I'm the most important thing that ever happened to them, and that might be very true. But they are not, their totality is not my parent. They are also a human being. They are also a person. So in this context, it's recognizing that God is not simply my creator. God is God beyond creation as well. But in this context, he's saying that the immature state of perceiving God is that God is that which is manifest within the world. Let's continue. Third line, I keep on breaking up that first sentence. Since his perception is clad in the physical. It therefore requires intense effort to overcome the difficulty in comprehending a divine concept, since the godliness, i.e. the object of his contemplation, is clad in the physical. This means a person is thinking completely in physical terms. I think of my life and the world around me and the physical truth of life, and then I shoehorn God into that space. So here's a world, here's what it looks like, and here's God that creates all of this, but the God that I believe in or that I know it of is fitting into my physical parameters. So that's why we have depictions of God that are physical, or we imagine God when we close our eyes in ways that are physical and tangible, because we can't get outside of that perception. And furthermore, last sentence within this parenthesis, and furthermore, because the brightness of his godly soul, or the light of his godly soul, is trapped within an animal soul, it therefore requires intense effort for him to understand and sense godliness, meaning in addition to the fact that we are physical creatures trying to perceive a non-physical creator or non-physical reality beyond us, that's further hampered, this effort, by the fact that our godly soul, which has the best shot of understanding God or perceiving God or appreciating and loving God, is trapped itself inside an animal soul. Great. So not only is God trapped behind this kind of wall of spiritual versus physical, but our godly soul is also trapped inside a physical container of the animal soul. Let's continue. This is because all of this, he says, is because of his immature state of katnut hamochin, of this kind of immature perception. Mochin means intelligence. In this case, again, it's not. Again, just to be very clear, it's not a derogatory term and putting down our intelligence. He's just saying this is a state where our perception is still immature. This is because of an immature state of katnut hamochin, and because he accomplishes the refinement in the immature manner of katnut, which means immaturity, in which he hides his intent and utilizes a cunning and deceptive approach. So the idea here is that in a state of being where physical reality rules and reigns, so my perception of God is limited, and my prayer experience is limited, and then when I encounter the world, I also have to do so in a way that is cunning and deceptive, meaning I approach the world. Look, I'm eating like everyone else. Aha, I have a deeper intention in mind. But meanwhile, I'm engaging in a way of cunning and deception because I'm really tethered to the physical experience. He must do it in this manner, since the way to withdraw the nitzotzot, the sparks, from the nachash hakadmoni, from the primordial snake or serpent, requires cunning and deception, as mentioned earlier. And since we find ourselves in a material reality, in a material world, stuck in that perception, so therefore we have the battle. So this was the chapter that we're studying, and I hope through the language of Kabbalah, the core ideas are coming out. And what is the core idea? The core idea is where a person is their experience. In other words, if I look at the world through a lower lens, this exists, but there's a God that's powering it. What I'm really setting up myself is for conflict. I'm setting up myself for conflict. What is the conflict? The conflict between the physical and spiritual. Because what I've done is I've said like this: the world is physical. The world is a yesh. The world exists. But I believe that God is really the ultimate power. But it's like God is powering this, but this doesn't reflect God. But I believe that this is powered by God. In other words, in my head, there's a dichotomy. In my head, it's a binary construct. There's the physical, there's the spiritual. The physical is powered by the spiritual, but therefore it's setting up my whole day, my whole experience, my whole life, my whole avoda, my whole spiritual work in a way that bespeaks this conflict. So in the morning when I pray, I put myself in camp spiritual. And then when I go to work, I put myself in camp physical. But I still remember what I learned from camp spiritual to draw into camp physical, to remember my purpose even when I'm working. But then I relate to the work, or I relate to the food as an adversary that I have to trick and connive to pull out the spark of godliness inside of it. Meaning it's an adversarial relationship, because I've created a construct in my mind. Because the construct in my mind is one in which It's either this or that. All of that represents katnut hamochin. That's the lower level of understanding. The higher way of understanding, which I mentioned before, which is the next chapter, chapter 8, is God's perception. And I mentioned this earlier. It's not today's focus. But it's probably easier to understand one if you have a little bit of that contrast. What is gadlut hamochin? What is mature intelligence in this context? It means when a person is somehow able to channel the viewpoint of God, which is basically, it's all me from God's vantage point. There's no conflict. There's no dichotomy. There's no struggle. There's no battle. It's all divine. So when you go to work, you're not fighting and wrestling and having to steal back the spark from the serpent. That's all like, it's interesting. You have some relationships where the dynamic of the relationship is who's going to win? Like, who's going to win? And then you get to a higher level of a relationship where you realize that if I even use that language, I've already lost. Because if I win and you lose, how is that good? What does that even mean? You know what happens sometimes where like you're debating someone, you're arguing with someone, and you want to be right. And then you realize again, and that's either I'm right or you're right. I want to be right. That's the dichotomy. That's where it's either or. That's where the binary construct is this or that. Then you realize, one second, if I win and you lose, I also lose, because you and me are one. How could I ever win and you lose and that be a good thing? What does that mean? That means we're both losing. If you lose, I lose. That's a more elevated perspective on a relationship. And in a very similar way, today, that what we learned today, chapter 7 of this text, All for the Sake of Heaven, chapter 7 is reminding us that as long as we view the world and God as two separate realities, and that's how we come in every day. I exist. This is real. Oh, and there's a God. Modani lefanecha. Oh, I remember. There's also a God, but it's still a plus one. So there's really two realities, physical and spiritual. And so I begin my day, let me run to the spiritual. And then I run back into the physical. And then I try to draw from the spiritual into the physical. Great. But the whole dynamic, the whole relationship is an adversarial one. Who's going to win? You're going to win or I'm going to win. Either the work is going to win and sink me into it, or I'm going to win and elevate it. Or the food's going to win and bring me down into the steak and into the wings and into the beer and into the booze or whatever it is. Or I'm going to win and elevate the seltzer bubbles to holiness. Who's going to win? All of this is in a world of winning. All of this is in a world of zero-sum game. And a more elevated level, on a more elevated state of being, it's all oneness. There is no snake. There is no the physical reality is not a conflict. That doesn't mean you lean in and like it's all good. But we'll cover that in chapter 8 next week. We're going to get into what that looks like. But understand this whole notion of Jacob putting on the suit of Esau, Yaakov putting on the suit of Esau to go in as like a spy, as like, behind enemy lines to extract the spark. Aha, you thought I was eating. I wasn't. I was really elevating a spark of holiness back to its source. That whole dynamic is all when you look at the outside as not being God and God is here and I have to move the spark from here to here. All of that is the lower level of perception where there's different realities. A higher perception is where it's all one. Does this make any sense? Yeah? No?
So, Rabbi, I have a question.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So, then, practically speaking, should I do more to, if you will, cultivate my godly soul and focus on my godly soul in an effort that it will somehow be able to be at one with the animal soul then becomes integrated with the godly soul,
Yeah,
and I'm not constantly fighting my animal soul.
The goal is greater integration. How to do that, stay tuned for next week. But yeah, no, so today was really about kind of laying the expectations, right? So we didn't really finish it today because next week, it's a little bit of a cliffhanger. He's going to get into the concept of what it looks like to have that greater level of integration. Today, he's pointing out that anytime we think of like, okay, I'm about to enter the big bad world. Let me fortify myself spiritually so when I enter the world, I can do my mission and extract the spark. All of that is living in a reality where there's two separate things, where the physical is physical, the spiritual is spiritual. And yes, one does power the other, but they're really two separate entities. And that's already a lower level of reality. But your question is, what does it look like when you integrate it? Next week. Same bad time, same bad channel. All right. Made sense? Yes?
Optimal marriage. I guess it's, no, what is it? Yeah, marriage is be optimal without any, you're completely one.
No competition. But think about it. Think about like, and again, it's. I would say it's like level one. Level one is I want to be right, and sometimes that means you're going to have to be wrong, but because I want to be right. And it's not. I'm not always being about marriage. It could be any. It could be a work relationship. It could be any relationship. It could be in a synagogue board, right? We have an issue at hand, security for the synagogue, and different approaches. What do we do? So I want to be right. You want to be right. But then when let's go back to relationship, because I don't know if you have to be one with every member of the synagogue board. But like with your loved one, or let's say with a child, that's maybe even a better example. With a child, right? You want to be right and they should be wrong. How does that help? If they lose, you win. Oy, what does that mean? You feel good because they lost, your child lost, so you feel good about it? How does that make any sense? That's not good. So a higher level of perception is, one second. I can't win if they lose. That's not a win. That's a loss. Even for the perspective of, I lost the relationship. Or one ounce of the relationship has now been compromised. That's not a win. But it's true in any relationship. Let's say two people, friends, spouses, whatever, really, are arguing about which movie to watch. Just like a silly example, right? Which movie to watch. One wants to watch the rom-com, and one wants to watch the car chase, slammo, jammo, explosion flick. And because of that, there's so much conflict that no one's going to have a good experience, no matter what. Who won? No one wins. Yeah.
Isn't that the same and extended to the synagogue committee, because we're all one, therefore
Yeah.
everyone hurts once
Yeah.
itself.
Yeah. But it's harder to conjure that up.
Sure.
Because if I'm sitting around the synagogue board, which I'm not on a synagogue board for the record, but if I was and someone had a different opinion and I won, I don't know that I would be thinking much longer about that because I'm not living with that person. Yes, I do. On the truth level, yes, it's the same thing. But when you're living with someone under the same roof, it becomes more immediate that like their loss is not my win.
Well, Kabbalistically, if someone's hurt you,
Yeah.
that you shouldn't go to hurt them.
Correct. No, you are 100% correct. No, what you're saying is 100% right. What I'm saying is an experience.
Yes, much
We can
harder.
feel it much more immediate.
Yes.
That me winning, them losing is not a win for me. When you're like in like a close relationship with that person, like them being, I mean, it's like, I don't know. I go bowling with my kids sometimes. It's like, do I want to crush them? I don't know. Like, I don't know why is that a thing? Huh? Yes. No, I'm kidding. Dominating.
Yeah, competitive spirit, you know?
So here's the thing.
Because he knows one day that they're gonna come back
And crush me. It started getting to that point. Look, or Topgolf, right? It's like, I don't know. The beginning point is me versus you. The more mature perspective is us. And it's the same thing spiritually. It's like physical versus spiritual. And then chapter 8, which we haven't gone to, is the idea that this is one. So let's not look at it as I need to defeat the physical and, covert mission and all that stuff. Like, it's a different perspective altogether. Anyway, I hope this made sense. It was a lot of deep stuff today.
Too deep.
Too deep? What's the moral of the story?
The
Perception
story
becomes
is
reality.
if there's 20 kids pulling the hose out there
Oh, no.
and putting the water on and trying to kill one another, I got a little distracted.
Well, hopefully they're okay.
But they seem to be.
Oh, thank God this is
That
right.
was a challenge. It was part of the challenge.
Oh, see that? It's like a reality show where you're trying to walk across. You ever have that experience where you're walking across like this like bridge type thing, and they have like a swirling. You know what I'm talking about?
Funhouse.
The funhouse.
Yeah.
They have like the black and white thing that swirls, and you're walking, and you feel like you're literally flipping.
It's an illusion.
You know what the solution is? Close your eyes and walk, and you know what?
Right.
It's all good.
Right.
And so that might be the similar message.
Right.
That's why I'm faced this way.
Yeah, except you're seeing everything in the reflection.
No, yeah, but I couldn't really
That's
today.
true, I thought about
You know what
that.
was weird? Today it was almost like the lights were going on and off over there. I'm assuming it's because of the sun,
Probably.
Yeah.
but it was like it was going. It almost felt like off and on and off and on.
All this was trick for us to be the one reality, even the different stimuli.
Right? No, right. So that's the point. The point is to battle against, to kung fu it.
The
Look,
disruption.
next week is going to get into this oneness that is absolutely phenomenal. All right, that's it. Good.
Next week the kids are going to come with the whole inside.
Yeah. Can you still maintain focus with the hose on the participants? On the participants.
Did you not see them behind you?
No.
It's all recorded. You got the whole thing. down.
I
Yeah,
wasn't
you got it.
paying too much attention. Dr. Maxie, good to see you. Shoshi, good to see you. Liliana, good to see you. Liliana, come back in person. We want to see you. Good to see you, Shoshi. Hey, all right. Alexa, good to see you. In person next week? Awesome. Great. Fran and Gerard, good to see you. Hope you're doing well. And Shavua Tov, everyone. Have a wonderful week. See y'all soon. Take care.